Eventually, what we would find was that in the year before the shooting, Bobby Cremo had taken a trip around the country to meet a bunch of weirdos that he met on this gore website called Documenting Reality. It's a very strange parasocial community of people who meet each other in real life. They're on a gore website, okay, like a live leak, so these aren't really normal, healthy people. But what's so strange about it was that the people who are really on that site, the active users, are people like us, not like 15-year-old edgy kids, but like bankers and mental health professionals. And we were identifying these people and finding their LinkedIn to be like, these people could be your neighbors.
Whoa.
You'd have no idea that they're on this weirdo gore site in their free time being weird. So we found that Bobby had gone and lived with one of them in Florida. We found that he had traveled to Oregon to meet several other members, and there were pictures of him shooting guns with these people. And this was just a few months before the shooting. So a lot of really weird stuff that made us question what had actually happened.
When you said earlier that you saw there's people saying there were bodies lined up, that was a big red pilling moment for you. Can you explain what that is?
Well, so there weren't any videos or pictures of it on the news because it was, kind of the bodies were very, it was very graphic. There was one body in particular that was laying at the back of the square that was outside of the purview of the rooftop completely. And that person, after a lot of investigating and interviewing and watching eyewitness testimony, determined that that person had been shot and fell and died immediately. That person couldn't have been hit from the rooftop. We've sent people out there to take pictures of the vantage point and try to figure out how that person could have gotten hit by a bullet at the top of the roof that they claimed that the shooter was on. It didn't make a lot of sense. And so that's where the pictures that I got came from the family of the alleged shooter. They weren't public pictures for obvious reasons because they were very, very disturbing. But yeah, that's haunted me, I guess,
Oh, yeah, I understand.
And I was hoping that something would come out in the trial where they'd be like, oh, here's a ballistics trajectory analysis explanation. And I could go, oh, okay. But that didn't happen because the trial got called off.
Well, maybe that's why the trial got pulled off, right? Does his family have a certain theory behind this that is in contrast to the official story?
So it was back in I think December or so of 2022, maybe it was earlier, but a couple months into my investigation, I'd put out a couple of videos, right, that were like debunking certain narratives and digging a little bit deeper. I got a message from one of his family friends who said that the family, like the dad, Bob Cremo Sr., wanted to talk to me because they had seen my video and they thought that there were a couple of inaccuracies, but overall it was the most accurate account they'd seen of the shooting. And they were very grateful that I had put it out there because, of course, they were seeing all the misinformation about their family and their son and stuff too. Right. Then after asking, talking back and forth with this family friend a bit more, they started saying that the Cremos believed that there were other people involved, that Bobby would start disappearing for days at a time, and then he would come back and say that he was meeting with these friends that he knew online. His behavior changed, and a lot of things got strange around the area around then, and we think that there could be other people involved, and they asked me to help them continue to investigate.
Wow. So what was the theory that you have? Like, if you think of a second shooter, what do you think is behind this?
And I'm writing a book, right? So it's gonna there's a lot of information I could give you here, but ultimately I'd say, there were a lot of people on this gore website who were fascinated by watching people die. That's what they were obsessed with. That's what they did every single day, to the point where they would try to provoke people on the website to go commit attacks or to kill themselves in hopes that they could find body cam footage later and get to watch it for their own sick purposes. If that sounds really creepy and weird, yes, it's very creepy and weird, especially like I said, when we identified some of these people's real life identities, we found that they were financial advisors for big banks and mental health professionals and people like there was one who was a high school threat assessor and who would talk to Bobby and assessed him for threats before the shooting. Very weird stuff going on. And a couple of the people were local to him as well, including one person who claimed to be Bobby's romantic partner recently in a Facebook spurg out. So very strange stuff going on with this group of people. A lot of them were motivated strictly by the fact that they wanted to see a snuff film. Basically, would that be what that is? Essentially, right?
Right.
They're motivated by wanting to see an extreme video come out of the act, I think. And it is widely known now that that Bobby Cremo, the alleged shooter, did have a GoPro on him. And it's not known why the GoPro wasn't working at the time or whether it recorded anything, but it seemed like he at least intended to live stream it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Do you think it recorded and they just haven't released it?
Is possible. I think I don't really think so, because I think that would have already come out as being like a big part of the prosecution's evidence, right. Because Reinhardt's come out publicly and said that so this kind of goes back to what you were saying about the trial, right? Mm-hmm. They were going to have 48 injured victims testify.
Wow. All
All 48 of them, none of them saw the shooter that day. None of them could provide anything material to the court case against him. And all of them were just going to testify about all the violence and gore and awful stuff they saw. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to my friend Ken Silva, who you probably know from Headline USA, yep. And he told me that that's the exact same thing they did at Timothy McVeigh's trial for the Oklahoma City bombings, that they just had victim after victim after victim come in and describe the gore and horror to the jury, because the overall evidence was kind of weak. And so they just wanted to, to kind of make the juries tired of hearing all of this stuff, right. And just really emotionally destabilize them. And he said that's a tactic they use when the evidence is weak. Wow. So Reinhardt's also said that the evidence they have placing him there was simply there's a security camera that captured him in the alleyway. And the gun, obviously, that he left behind. But as far as did he pull the trigger, I haven't seen that evidence. I thought maybe it would come out in court. But I think that if there had been like a GoPro or something, we'd already know that existed.
Yeah. He's interesting, looking at him. He looks like someone who might have been into drugs, but I believe I saw you say that he wasn't on drugs, right? Or he claimed to not be on drugs. Well,
I think that he was a stoner. I think he smoked weed. But like, as far as like doing hard drugs or anything, no. And as far as like, he wasn't on SSRIs, he would never touch that stuff. His family was kind of more new age, right.
Right.
So he wasn't on any kind of psychiatric medications. I think he smoked, he was just a stoner.
So what do you think? Do you think someone's in his ear saying you're guilty? You got to plead guilty to make this easier? Like what?
Yeah. His defense attorneys. Can I say that now?
Yeah.
I guess so. I don't know.
It's over, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was getting, I talked to his dad, almost daily for the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
Okay? Like over the last 2 years, I've talked to this man for hours and hours and hours.
Wow.
He's kind of just a lovable old boomer, right? He's very confused about how this happened to his kid, and he's been obsessed with trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
It's not like what people tend to think of, like, oh, his parents weren't there for him. No, like he told me that the night before the shooting, everything was normal. They were watching TV together. Bobby said, "Good night, I love you," and that was the last thing he said to him.
Wow.
Before the shooting. So. He and that's what his dad was actually set to testify about, his mental state the night before the shooting. But obviously, because of that podcast, that got possibly thrown out.
Are his parents together?
Are they what?
Are they together? His parents?
They're married, but I think they're separated now. But they did grow up together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I saw footage of the mother. I think she kind of freaked out in the courtroom, right, when he pled guilty. Do you know anything about that?
It's kind of sad. Yeah. So about a year ago or so, we started to see an account on Twitter that was like spurging out conspiracy, like ridiculous stuff, like saying that like it was like a picture of one of the it was a picture of the SWAT team outside their house, and she'd circled one of them and said, "That's actually Bobby in the SWAT team outfit," and that it was a look-alike on the roof. And the Mexican cartels are involved, but in reality, we were able to trace back all of these conspiracies to just crazy stuff that she'd pieced together because she essentially had a mental breakdown. She was unable to cope with everything that had happened, and I think that she was very desperate for some kind of explanation. So it's unfortunate. I don't really want to I feel really bad for her because she's clearly not mentally well right now. I think that that's understandable given the circumstances.
Of course.
So a lot of people have picked on her on the internet, and I feel kind of bad about that because she's.
Oh, geez. I just saw a woman who's hurt. I saw after she left the courtroom when her son just pled guilty, she gave a statement and it didn't make sense. And it was talking about adjudication and a federal case. And I think the cartels or something. And I was like, and the news people were like, we don't really know what that meant. But there's pain on her face. She looks, like she's obviously been through a ton.
You can look at pictures from her from back in 2022 to now, and it's very, very obvious that she's had a very bad degradation in her mental state.
So now he's set to be sentenced. I guess that's the next move. And
he has 30 days from the plea to reverse his plea.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard that he signed the plea agreement, Donald Trump.
No.
And it got all the way through the district clerk filed it without noticing.
No.
And so these legal experts had to come on and say, well, it doesn't invalidate it because he pled in front of the judge, right, on transcript, but that could throw a wrench into things because he didn't technically sign the plea agreement. So we don't know if he's a professional troll, this kid. Right. We don't know if he's still trolling or if he has something planned or if he just doesn't care anymore.
Wow.
Right?
It sounds like he's still trolling. Honestly.
Yeah, to me, I wonder if he just doesn't care and he's given up, kind of moralistically given up.
He's young. He's really young, right?
He's 20. He was 21. He was a month away from being 22.
Wow, that's insane.
At the shooting.
Okay, yeah. So and it's been 2 years. Wow. So you're still gonna be following it, and like you said, you're writing a book on it. So that's awesome. You're the person who should be writing the book on it. Don't let any other crazy people steal your stuff.
Well, I tried. I tried to get in touch with Aronson about it, and what he put out was so clearly you got a couple of episodes in, and I'm still kind of suspicious. Where's he going? And it was on episode 3 where he goes, "This is why conspiracy theories in America are out of control." Then he played some clips of Trump saying this, Tucker Carlson saying that, and the rest of the whole thing was just this is proof that conspiracy theories are bad. And I was like, this is disappointing coming from a person who's built his career around conspiracy theories about the FBI.
Interesting.
That's what he's done his whole career. And so this was very strange. It was an Audible original. Bobby's dad said that he had flown all over the country for 2 years, preparing for this podcast release, and somebody was paying him, Audible, I guess, but I don't know who pays Audible, but there was definitely a lot of funding behind the podcast.
Wow. Well, maybe it was USAID.
In fact, he does actually associated with a group called New America that is associated with USAID. It's a think tank for extremism.
Not surprised.
Many such cases.
Yeah, many such cases indeed.
I won't go off on that rabbit hole, but yes, many such cases. I tweeted about it online. I said, people are always asking who's a Fed. You should be asking, or who's a FBI agent or something. You should be asking who's working for an NGO think tank that's funded by a shady dark money organization. That's what you should be asking yourself. Yes. There's way more of those people than there are undercover FBI agents online.
That's why I always say, it's Fed internet theory, but the nuanced version of it is who's being paid by whom to push certain things. And you should question everybody because it's why are they pushing this narrative over that narrative all of a sudden? People seem to be botted into oblivion.